You found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, welcome back for another Dragons or Dinosaurs, or is it Dinosaurs or Dragons? I can't remember. Let's see. We are supposed to have Eric Vertaler with us, but he's having connection problems. So we're going to see how that goes. Let's see. My next video is going to be on homeopathy. It's going to be fairly short. Oh, let's try the answer. Hey, what's going on, Eric? You disconnected. It's alright. Let me just, oh wait, I can't hear you because I had you muted because you disconnected and want everything to just pop back in. Anyway, yeah, Eric's back. Everyone, he disconnected. It's a thing that happens every once in a while. Alright.
So anyways, on the documentary is called Dragons or Dinosaurs, Creation or Evolution, but if you want to shorten it, you know, we can just call it Dragons or Dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling it. Alright, so we left off at the 29-minute mark last time, so we're going to just pick it right back up there. They had just been talking about Australian Aboriginals seeing an alleged hadrosaur because the drawing that they made didn't look like a hadrosaur. So, there we go. Let's get into it.
Time that were fresh and were unlike any other creature that people were familiar with at the time.
And 13 years later, on the other side of the world, a dinosaur was unearthed, and it was called Edmontosaurus. And when you look at a reconstruction of Edmontosaurus next to the sketch of the bunyip,
they don't look anything alike. Got it.
Yeah, not really.
I mean, this bunyip looks much more like a cross between like a warthog and a crocodile than anything that, I mean, and plus the other thing is like, this picture quality is just abysmal. It might be better in the original of the video, because I'm pretty sure this is a low quality rip from a VHS, but still.
And one other thing I want to add, so Edmontosaurus was found in Montana. I did not know where this drawing was found in, but you know, if it truly was Edmontosaurus, oh well, A, it would resemble it a lot more, and B, that should be found in Montana. And I don't know if it ever was. Well,
this story is from Australia because the bunyip is it's a creature from certain groups of Aboriginal Australians folklore. It lives in pools of water and comes to attack people like a crocodile. I mean, it's basically a mythical version of a crocodile.
Yeah, that's not an Edmontosaurus at all. I mean,
no.
Edmontosaurus not found in Australia, and you know, in that. I mean, it was a herbivore, and I mean, I know that herbivores are not always pacifists, but for what we know about behavior of Edmontosaurus, that doesn't sound like it at all.
Well, let's just say this: it probably wasn't an aquatic ambush predator. That we can say with pretty high levels of certainty. Yeah. Also, welcome everybody. We got Trim Tarask, Nestling 20, Ugly German Truths, Tesla Ranger, Tyler West. Look at all these people coming in. By the way, my offer from last time stands. If you want to see me in a tutu, you just gotta get up to 100 in chat revenue. So that's, and if you get to 200, I'll put Bent in a tutu as well. I'll buy one for him.
So it's actually very, very interesting, like that he brought up Edmontosaurus. It was because that when I went on a dinosaur dig in 2018, when I was a young Earth creationist, I actually found an Edmontosaurus rib bone and a tailbone.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
For sure.
All right. Hey, Demon Orb, welcome to the chat. Here we go.
Drawn by the artist for the newspaper in Geelong on the basis of Aboriginal descriptions, the two are very similar.
You have to interpret evidence of the present in relation to the past. And what I would say is this. there is very strong circumstantial evidence, because all evidence in relation to the past is
Why were we looking at Archaeopteryx in the middle of a discussion about the bunyip that's supposed to be an Edmontosaurus? It's just a weird choice. It's a good fossil, though.
like a forensic scientist. They're working with circumstantial evidence. Is very strongly confirms the Bible's history that dinosaurs and people lived at the same time.
That's not even the Bible's history. Oh, and now we're getting to more of this bit here that we're going to skip
so many
through.
people hunting
Yeah.
him. Danny said,
Yeah.
Could actually be.
The Bible says nothing about dinosaurs at all, which they're going to get into that later on, but let's not jump too far ahead.
Okay.
Stories about what we today call dinosaurs.
The reason why you don't find the word dinosaur in the Bible is the same reason why you don't find words like computer or locomotive.
No, it's different. That's because the word dinosaur hadn't been invented, because it's questionable as to whether or not anyone had any idea about the animals existing. But even if they did have an idea of them existing, it's still not for the same reason, because computers and locomotives just had never existed at the time the Bible was written. It's not quite the same.
Spot on.
Because all of those words were invented in the English language well after the Bible was translated into English.
The word dinosaur wasn't invented until 1841 by Sir Richard Owen, who was head of the British Museum. Before that, words such as dragon were used in the Bible.
Oh, interestingly enough, I want to go back to that picture of Richard Owen.
It wasn't invented until 1841.
So this is him with his reconstruction of a moa from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
By Sir
And
Richard Owen, who was head of the British.
He actually used this as one of the reasons to say that birds couldn't have evolved into dinosaurs, because, you know, he was around towards the beginning of that whole idea. And he was a pretty staunch old Earth successive creation guy. And so people said that maybe these big three-toed tracks that we had seen in the fossil record were created by dinosaurs, but he didn't like that because, you know, it didn't show a lizard-like, sluggish, tail-dragging monster stomping through. They seemed much too bird-like. But then he reconstructed this guy right here, and he was like, see, they were all just birds. You don't have to worry about it. Dinosaurs and birds, no connection. Shut up. Because
Yeah.
Richard Owen was a dick. He was a giant dick, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, and Richard Owen, back when they found one of the specimens of Archaeopteryx, it didn't have a head. And then he was saying, "Oh well, when we find a head, it's just going to be a toothless beak like every other bird." Well,
Right.
the event was proven wrong.
Yeah, Richard Owen was actually... So he was a very smart guy, and he was extremely good at comparative anatomy, but he was also notoriously dishonest and notoriously a dick, basically. Yeah, this is where we're going to go. He was a gigantic jerk. So, not the most pleasant guy, but on the other hand, he was extremely important in helping recognize fossil species as unique things, as well as putting together, you know, a large portion of our current ideas about, like, Mesozoic and early Cenozoic Europe come from work that he either did or helped on. So, yeah.
And one of the things that is so funny about Richard, oh well, not so much about him, but it's about how dinosaur deniers will say, "Oh well, Richard Owen made up dinosaurs to promote evolution propaganda." But I'm like, you obviously don't realize that he was arguing against evolution, so why would he promote
Right.
propaganda that he didn't believe in?
Like, granted, the kind of creationist that Richard Owen was is not a kind that's common today.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had this idea that God would, over the course of geological history, come out with, like, basically update patches for the world's life. Be like, you know, all those crazy reptiles and fish, they were okay, but let's get some lizards going. That'll be better. And then later on, he'd be like, yeah, okay, lizards are cool and all, but what about birds? We'll toss them in there. Be like, these lizards are starting to get old and tired. Let's replace them with mammals. And then finally he was like, hey, you know what? These mammals are pretty cool. Let's make a new kind of mammal that's even cooler, and it'll be humans. And we'll pop them in there. I don't know of any creationists that still subscribe to this idea.
I don't know either.
But still, it's a far cry from supporting evolution. Like, this guy was not an evolution supporter in the least. He was, yeah, no, not even a little bit. He thought that if a species existed, God had created it based on his previous works, and that sorry, and that God is just improving his designs as time goes by, because apparently, I guess he didn't think that God was omniscient, which is another reason why this kind of successor creation is probably not very common today. But let's push through.
British Museum. Before that, words such as dragon were used in the Bible.
The King James Bible was first translated into English in 1611, so the word dinosaur is a modern word.
There is a distinct philosophy that is able to be identified when you look at the King James Version of the Bible that was first printed in 1611 to the more modern translations in English language like the ESV.
My copy of the King James Version is a reprinting of the 1611 edition. Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
In 1611, they used the word dragon 35 times. In the Old Testament alone, they used the plural word dragon 16 times. But if you look at the ESV today, they use the word dragons in the plural form 0. And what is very clear to see is that whenever dragon is used...
Chesh is here. Chesh, if you want in, let me know. You know, you're welcome on the streams. If you don't want in, that's cool too. We're talking about dragons, but not dungeons. There's no dungeons. Are there dungeons in this, Eric?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, so no dungeons, but there are dragons.
refer to a real living, breathing creature that walks upon land, the ESV has decided that that is not a word that can be used. Most of the time they replace it with jackal, which is like a little hairy dog. Now that is a big discrepancy between a small, hairy, fox-like creature and a big, gigantic reptile.
I mean, I wish they would give us a reference so that I can actually check on these things, because, like, it's really not, you know, it's not like it's that hard for me to go and find out why was something translated this way. And also, I'm sorry if you can hear the helicopters flying over my house. I live near an airport, and usually it's no problem. But today, there have been very low-flying helicopters. I do not know why. I'm just going to assume that they're on a manhunt for a serial killer, because that's more fun than the actual answer probably is. So.
Yeah, and when he mentioned jackal, and so one of the things that YECs always use as evidence in the Bible that dinosaurs are in there is the word tannion. But if you actually check with any concordance, a tannion means exactly what he said. It's a jackal. And so tannions in the Bible are not dinosaurs at all. And when he said, "Oh, it's a jackal," he shot himself right in the foot. And what was so funny, he's been doing that so many times throughout this whole entire documentary.
Well, and one thing I do want to say for the King James translators is that when they were translating, it was at a stage when there was less... classical Hebrew was less well understood, even in rabbinical circles. And so we have done a lot of work linguistically, and by we, I guess I just mean humanity, on ancient Near East languages and, Semitic languages, and there's a reason that some of these words get very differently translated now, and it's because we have a better understanding of them. Because when the Old Testament was being translated at the time, even a lot of Jewish scholars didn't know what many of the words, well, not many, but some of the words in the Bible meant in Hebrew. They were just like, no one's been using this language for, thousands of years. We don't know what this word means. It just means something. So I don't want to dog on the translators too much, because they did a lot of really difficult work with not great sources, and I think they did a pretty good job for what they had to work with. So there you go.
Creature. And what you see is that the evolutionary mindset has seeped into to so many things that we have even our most conservative Bible theologians look at dragons. They do not make the connection between dragon and dinosaur, and they have the idea that, wow, dragons aren't real, and so we have to protect the inerrancy of the Bible.
Most of the people believe that dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago, and therefore humans couldn't possibly have seen them because they haven't been around that long.
I mean, it's not like they think that for no good reason. It's because a very well-dated horizon exists in the geological record at the end of the Cretaceous, after which we don't find a single non-avian dinosaur species. And it can be very reliably dated, so... people didn't make that up one day.
So it's a case of a faulty view of history with this millions of years imposed upon it, which means they have to try to explain away human encounters with creatures which we would call dragons.
But sometimes we treat God like he's a little old lady that needs help crossing the street. No, I believe that God said what he means, and he means what he said. So if dinosaurs and dragons really are one and the same, one might actually ask, well, why did dragons fade into mythology to begin with? And that's a really good question.
You haven't even come close to establishing that dragons and dinosaurs are the same thing. And yeah.
And as far as what God said, I think it's pretty clear that he's misinterpreting what God said. And I actually, I actually have this article right here that I use in my debate with Cody about 2 months ago. Here's an article right here about how if you misinterpret Genesis, it actually can lead to denial of evolution. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear from all the science, from all the evidence in science, he's misinterpreting scripture. And and by rejecting all this evidence in science about evolution and the Earth being old, I don't think he realizes this, but he is inadvertently implying that God is a. So yeah, they're also saying like that. Oh, they're trying to explain away the flood. They're trying to explain away dinosaurs having humans. No, it's not that at all. The bottom line is the job of a scientist is to follow the physical evidence, regardless of what your beliefs are, regardless if you're a theist, atheist, or whichever. Follow the physical evidence, and I'm sorry, and YECs can get mad at me all they want. I'm sorry, I'm just speaking the truth.
Yeah, well, one of the things about science is that it's super great at showing what ideas are wrong. And the thing is that means that you're probably going to be wrong about things when you start approaching science. Like, if you just come as essentially naive to the things that science has discovered, and more importantly, the things that it has demonstrated not to be the case, yeah, you're going to be wrong about a lot of stuff. And the thing is, if you approach it with the standpoint that I can't be wrong because this book told me I had to be right, even if the book didn't tell you that, which, I mean, it's pretty arguable as to whether or not this is what the Bible is trying to teach. I think there's a good case to be made that it's not. But I'm not here for biblical exegesis, so whatever. But yeah, if you start with these ideas that I got from this book have to be true, then you're just never going to know if they're true or not, because you're never going to be able to test them.
And interesting enough, there actually were some geologists back like hundreds of years ago who were YECs, and they were trying to find evidence of a global flood, but they actually were very shocked to find that's not what they found. They actually found evidence that the Earth is old.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's a lot of modern geology, paleontology, cladistics, and things started by people who were trying to prove a more or less literal interpretation of of certain Bible stories. And they just turns out that that's not the case. That's not what happened.
Question. So you had all cultures in the world essentially passing on stories about big lizards. And over time, those stories get corrupted, they get distorted.
Big lizards aren't dinosaurs. Dinosaurs aren't big lizards. Also, we should have had a St. George counter for every time they use the same St. George story as another depiction of someone with a dragon. Because this is once again St. George. And I think it would be interesting how many times they try to use different depictions of St. George as independent corroboration of dinosaurs existing with humans.
The fish story of the day, you know, they get this added or that added, and all of a sudden they become magical and they cast spells in at least a modern fantasy literature.
It was not until around the year 1800 that a French scientist named Georges Cuvier started to publish his findings that the extinction of a species was actually possible. Before that time, no one thought that species could go extinct. They actually thought that God had a kind of a supernatural preservation on all the species of the world. The reason they thought that was an errant view of the Bible. They go back to Genesis and said, you know, that God created all the creatures and that it was good. So they thought that at that point that there was kind of a supernatural preservation on that. That then got reinforced again when the flood came. And in the story of Noah's flood is that God was going to cleanse the planet.
Wait, so you're saying that people's initial reading of the Bible led them to interpret things literally that weren't actually the case? I wonder if that could have ever happened again.
I wonder.
And was going to basically start over and with Noah and his family. Well, he had Noah bring all the animal kinds 2 by 2 to the ark. And again, there was this sense of preservation.
We didn't invent the word dinosaur until the 1800s. And so anything before the 1800s could not have used the word dinosaur. And so no Bible translations would use the word dinosaur.
That's fine. And they never have. Though they're having some claims that they did, like, there was that one infamous claim of a plesiosaur, but actually was just proven to have been a basket shark.
Wasn't that from the 80s, though?
From what I recall at the YEC Montana Museum, the Coelacanths Dinosaur and Fossil Museum, they said it was 77.
Oh, that's even earlier than I thought.
Or prior to the 1800s, and since then, no Bible translation would dare to use the word dinosaur because of pressure from the evolutionists.
So people before the 1800s, as they're hearing these stories,
because they're not dinosaurs.
Right. There is no word in the Bible in Hebrew or Greek, in the Septuagint, the Masoretic text, any codex of the New Testament that would accurately be translated as dinosaur. I'm sorry.
Stories of dragons, they're looking around saying, I don't see that creature alive today, and if it is not alive today, then it was never alive. And that is how and why dragons fade into mythology.
No one thinks that if it wasn't alive today, it was never alive. You've been talking about extinct animals this whole time. The problem is, if you want to say that some animal was recently alive, you have to find evidence that it was recently alive. So, for instance, the Wrangel Island mammoth population didn't go extinct until, like, into the modern period. I'm gonna double check when they went extinct. Yeah, Wrangel Island mammoths. Let's see. Yeah, so, okay, not modern times, but like, mammoths survived on Wrangel Island until 2000 BC. So, that's well into historical times. But you know why people believe that? It's because they found the bodies of recently deceased, 4,000 years ago deceased woolly mammoths, which is much later than any other woolly mammoth remains. So now people believe there were woolly mammoths running around 4,000 years ago. If you found a Stegosaurus skeleton from, 1540, it would be easy to distinguish from a permineralized Stegosaurus skeleton from, like, the middle of a Jurassic rock outcropping. It wouldn't be a big question as to whether or not this was a recent find.
Yeah, and I think that some YECs are finally catching on to the fact that, that's a fatal blow to their, I guess, model. And then that was one of the things I got as backlash from my Kent Hovind debate was that I had some YECs telling me, oh yeah, oh well, in the Ashley beds they found human fossils with dinosaur fossils. But then when I checked into the source, those human fossils, alleged human fossils, were just the dinosaur fossils.
Right. Well, there's a similar thing with the Paluxy prints, where there's a bunch of quote-unquote human footprints that are just dinosaur footprints.
Oh yeah,
it's like it's actually a dinosaur footprint, not even a human one.
Right, and from what I recall, from the Puxley tracks, like some of the prints were so far away from each other. So either you're mean to tell me that this guy is taller than Shaquille O'Neal, or he was playing hopscotch, or what? But yeah, the Puxley tracks, YECs really need to stop using that as as something to try to argue for a young Earth. I mean, even IEG has even gone on to say, do not use that.
Man, all right. Tesla Ranger, I appreciate it, but my goodness, that Hebrew text is so small, I cannot make it out at all. Except that it... Tinu... something also doesn't, it's not a sin, so dinosaur? Is that it? I am not a big fan of sans serif tiny Hebrew fonts on the internet. They are almost completely illegible as far as I'm concerned. Now, granted, that's probably because I'm just not very familiar with Hebrew, but still, my goodness, they are. It's the same thing with Arabic fonts. Arabic fonts are always too small when you put them in the same size as like regular text. Everything just blurs together. Maybe it's just my eyes. I don't know. I just think that the scripts of Hebrew and Arabic tend to lend themselves to being written with larger character sizes than Latin. The character forms are just a little bit too similar for both of them.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that over the years have been found that were thought to have been extinct. Some mammals, some fishes, some plants. The coelacanth was the classic example from the early 1900s. The Wollemi pine, which was discovered in the later 1900s. So there's a lot of things that pop up.
Yeah, but the reason that we've accepted these things as extant creatures is because they are known to exist. We have bodies of them. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, even if there were dinosaurs, like, tyrannosaurs or spinosaurids or whatever in historical times, like, no one's going to be like, oh, I guess that disproves science or anything. It's like, it's fine, but you haven't provided evidence for it.
And even Darwin himself, he even said in the Origins of Species, pretty much, to sum it up, evolution will go at its own pace. And if it does not need to evolve, well, then it just won't.
Guess who is coming in as long as she actually answers?
Who?
Chesh is coming.
Awesome.
Yep. Presuming that we get the answer, because we're calling. Chesh, you're getting a... Oh, Chesh is here.
Awesome.
What?
I totally wasn't this.
What is up, Chesh? I can't hear you. Hopefully, Chesh gets the microphone thing sorted. Oh.
Hello.
You are quiet. Did I mute? Oh, I didn't mute you.
For a brief moment, it said...
There we go.
Aha!
It was Skype was set to use the wrong microphone.
That happens to me all the time. Actually, that happened to me. I was calling one of my friends, and she hung up on me twice before I texted her to say, "Stop hanging up. I'm changing microphones, but it can't happen unless you let me have a few seconds."
I can't change it if you keep hanging up. Yeah.
Right. Because every time she would be like, "Hello, hello," and then she would hang up as I'm selecting the correct microphone.
Oh no.
Yes. And I was eventually just like, stop.
Technology is hard, guys.
It is hard.
Technology is hard.
Your best friend, and it could be your worst enemy too.
Oh yeah.
I got myself some hot chocolate.
Ooh.
Nice.
Nice.
Ooh,
with marshmallow? That looks good.
And their spot just took over my screen, so where am I? Oh.
Yeah, so whoever is making the most noise, Skype will just put them up there.
So me,
All right.
it's me.
So you're gonna send me some of that hot chocolate? Because remember that one time I sent you some beer. Now you owe me.
Yeah, I know. No,
Okay.
it's already in the mail.
Okay, good. All right. I'll get some hot chocolate later, guys. It'll be great. So you wanna do some creationism crap? It's not even creationism.
Yeah.
It's basically just cryptozoology by creationists. Right, because for some reason,
yeah.
cryptozoology is going to prove young Earth creationism somehow.
Actually, wouldn't it? It would.
Not really.
Because that would essentially demonstrate a created kind.
Well, if it was cryptozoology,
if it existed,
if it was
crypto.
Well, if it was like one of the chimerical cryptids, like it's like a gorilla with deer antlers and goat feet, then like yeah, that would probably disprove evolution. But
A winged horse, at least.
right, that too. But instead, they're just going with like, guys, St. George from St. George and the Dragon, he totally fought a baryonyx, and that's because baryonyx has been found in England, and St. George is from Egypt. And we forgot that he's from Egypt. So yeah, so therefore, yeah, young Earth creationism and God. It's totally is a very sound argument.
Seems legit.
Here we go.
That no one thought should be, that no, everyone thought went extinct.
No, I can't
but it turns out
hear
that they're
it.
still here and they're essentially unchanged.
Wait, you can't hear it? Ah, Skype, what are you doing to me? I'm gonna make sure that can everyone hear? Share screen with sounds.
From the
Can
way
you
it was
hear?
supposedly millions of years ago.
And also
Yay!
there's an Australian living fossil that's very well known. It's called the Wollemi pine. And it was found in a very isolated part of the conservation reserve near Sydney.
I like this.
Looks like a bunch of weed.
Well, yeah, but I like this whole like, oh, it's the Wollemi pine and the coelacanth, and they're these creatures that we found after thinking they were extinct since the end Cretaceous. Like, that's true. You know what they have in common? They were both found in deep, isolated areas that people have trouble getting to and getting reports from, like the bottom of the ocean or the middle of Australia in some jungle cove in the middle of a desert. And by the way, Australia is the continent where pretty much everything is trying to kill you.
Nature definitely does pull the if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. And the thing is, it's like, there's a big difference between a Wollemi pine or a coelacanth and a freaking baryonyx, which is a giant, well, not giant, but it's a very large theropod with big sharp teeth and claws. It has, pretty high calorie intake needs. Can't just hang out at the bottom of the ocean. Like,
Well,
yeah.
right, it's like a shark. A shark hasn't, or a crocodile or alligator. They haven't needed to evolve and change too much in their habitats because their habitats haven't changed and nothing is threatening their way of life.
Right.
Or there hasn't been any major advantage in their evolutionary train recently. So there hasn't been any reason for them to change.
Unidentified Leviathan does point out that, yeah, the natives knew that the coelacanth existed. That's actually something you find a lot, is that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times the local population will be aware of animals that have not been formally described. And it happens less and less now because, we've been formally describing most things. So now it's pretty much down to like beetles and rodents and shrews and stuff that we're discovering.
Yeah, between every the technology and ability to communicate between each other and
Right.
the amount of time that's
Like,
gone by.
We're probably not going to find anything over like 10 kilograms as a new species on land anytime soon. Probably got
observed things go from one to the other though.
possibly, but when it
We're
comes
pretty close
to,
with dogs between Chihuahuas and.
but I mean, like
Great
we're
Danes.
probably not going to go out into the jungle and find like a new 12-kilogram form of cat. Like, it's just probably not going to happen. We probably got that pretty much on lock. Because the last large land animal to be formally described was basically the okapi, and that happened in like 1920 or something. So.
In New South Wales, and it quickly became known as the dinosaur tree because they said it had lived alongside the dinosaurs, and the initial dating of the Wollemi pine fossils was that it had been thought to be extinct for many millions of years.
Now, when they found this Wollemi pine just a short time ago, the curator of the Sydney Botanical
What's he a
Gardens
doctor
apparently
of?
said,
Did we cover
it's just
that?
like
I'm sure he has a degree in truthology from Christian Education University. Don't spit out your hot chocolate, Chesh.
I would burn my lap.
I actually don't remember. I think it was established earlier, but one of the rules of thumb is that creationists like to drag out PhDs who have PhDs in the wrong field.
In
Like,
unrelated fields,
right.
yeah.
Like, I'm
Which guy's
doing...
gonna have like a PhD in psychology.
Yeah, I just uploaded my second video of my my response to a speech about the Big Bang that AIG hosted. And the guy who's giving it is a PhD, and if you look him up online, it says he has a PhD in historical geology. Which, why are you talking about cosmology then, since those are largely unrelated fields? But also, when he's introduced, Ken Ham doesn't even introduce him as a PhD in geology. He says he has a PhD in the history of geology, which would mean that if Ken Ham were accurate, which I think he's not, but I think if that means he is accurate, that means this guy got a PhD in studying how geology as a field of science changed over time, which is a perfectly fine...
How it's evolved?
Right, exactly. And now, don't get me wrong, that would be a perfectly fine thing to specialize in, right? The history of a scientific discipline.
Oh yeah, it's a legitimate field of study.
Right, but it definitely does not qualify you to talk about alleged problems in the Big Bang or the nebular hypothesis for this formation of the solar
biology.
system. Right, and so that's one of the things you get with a lot of these creationist things is it's like, oh, can you legitimately put doctor in front of your name? Why don't you come talk about dinosaurs? And then, like, okay, sure, this guy doesn't know anything about them, but okay.
Yeah, and being a PhD doesn't necessarily even make you a decent person, so...
Oh, no. It just means that you're trustworthy. And it certainly doesn't make you an expert anywhere but the field where you got the PhD. So...
I mean, don't you think that if they really wanted to try to prove their point about like the Big Bang and so, well, and then logically, they should get somebody like who has experience like in cosmology and etc. It's like that's like saying that you're going to have a dentist come in. I'm going to do a lecture about dinosaurs when when they have notification about geology or paleontology, but dental care.
Yeah. Oh, and you know
you're
what?
100% right. There's one problem with that. They can't get anybody who's actually a professional in that field because they don't agree with them.
I will say, Unidentified Leviathan points out that a lot of times people with PhDs will then go on about the philosophy of things like atheism, and that is definitely not in their field, and it shows when they do. And I agree with him. That is not solely a creationist problem. When it comes to things like philosophy especially, people who are smart in one area like to think that they're smart in other areas, and they say stupid crap.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And sometimes that happens to them by accident.
Yeah.
To give some people a little bit of credence, because sometimes they're going into something, like, especially when it's a live show or a live interview, you start getting asked questions that aren't related to your field, and sometimes you just kind of have to go with it and be like, okay, well, I guess.
Yeah, you come up with an answer. I mean, you've been asked the question.
Yeah, it's usually better not to. It's usually better to answer honestly, but not everybody is able to do that on the spot.
Yeah.
Some people aren't gonna
But
necessarily.
I'm
think
especially
that somebody's pulling them off topic even sometimes.
I'm especially thinking of people like Dawkins, who clearly is not very good at history or philosophy or textual criticism, but likes to talk about all of these things.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
definitely different when you bring him on, but treat him as if he's a layman because he's a layman in those fields.
Right, exactly. In fact, I know more about most of those things than Richard Dawkins does, and I still don't talk about them. So, yeah.
Finding a live dinosaur. I think he said a live small dinosaur, because the point is it has exactly the same significance.
Now the coelacanth.
You're breaking up a little bit there. Try again.
Oh, sorry, but what I said was, he was saying, oh, it's like finding a dinosaur. Okay, you just found a tree. You didn't find a dinosaur. A tree and a dinosaur are two completely different things.
I mean, it's...
Well, it's also... Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, it is amazing to see something that you thought was extinct for tens of millions of years. It's not as amazing with a tree, because it's a much more likely thing to find. But, yeah, it's like, it doesn't...
A tree.
Right, the existence of the Wollemi pine does not provide evidence for the existence of non-avian dinosaurs in modern times. It just doesn't.
But yeah, who could say that's very tremendous?
Puns. Yay for puns.
I like this guy.
Eric's been on my channel a few times, and I've been on his channel, I think, at least once.
Mm-hmm.
So Eric's a good guy.
Mwah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Is
That
a
kind
fish.
of fun? You're
Fossils
that kind of
have
guy.
been found in this fish that the evolutionists say died out, say, 70 million years ago, came on the scene about 400 million years ago. The reality is, in 1938, off of the island of Madagascar, fishermen started catching coelacanths.
Of course it's Madagascar. You know, that's isolated island where nothing
Yes,
has changed.
everything is weird on Madagascar. Well, the other thing is, though,
The atmosphere still existed, and the necessary components needed for the habitat of a non-avian dinosaur existed somewhere on the planet, it is actually very likely that we would find living dinosaurs. Again, examples of these are already things like alligators, crocodiles, and sharks.
Right. Well, and one of the things, though, is that these are animals that have, like alligators, sharks, most non-avian dinosaurs. These are the kinds of things that have trouble disappearing from the fossil record for a few hundred or a few tens of millions of years. The reason that coelacanths disappear from the fossil record is apparently because every coelacanth that didn't live down at the depths of the ocean apparently did go extinct. And the problem with things that live at the bottom of the ocean is they tend not to leave behind fossils you can find because, one, even if they make fossils, they're at the bottom of the ocean. It's not very easy to go fossil digging at the bottom of an ocean trench. How would you even go about it? And the other problem is that rocks there don't last very long because oceanic crust is so much denser than continental crust that when they meet, the oceanic crust tends to sink into the mantle where it melts. And so any fossils there will also melt. And you're not going to get...
Plus the what lives at the bottom of a trench in the depths of the ocean.
Right. So
bottom feeders.
Exactly.
That will pick apart the carcass.
Like Kent Hovind.
Oh.
Oh, was that mean?
Oh.
Yeah, here's one thing I want to chime in about with YECs and coelacanth and whatnot. So what they don't realize, fossilization for dinosaurs and fish like the coelacanth, so they fossilize very differently. Dinosaurs have harder bones, and so therefore it's more likely for them to fossilize. Like while the coelacanth, their bones were not as hard, and then therefore
they're fish.
That's why that we find more dinosaurs in the fossil record than say fish, and they also are trying to argue, oh well, because it's possible that the coelacanth existed, past the dinosaurs, and so therefore it's also likely that dinosaurs survived past that too. Hey, just haven't found their fossils. Okay, just by saying the possibility is there isn't evidence of something. That's a logical fallacy of arguing from silence. By that same logic,
Oh, yeah.
But by that exact same logic, I can say, oh well, because space is so vast, that Darth Vader must exist somewhere out there. It's because I can't prove that he doesn't not exist.
Right. I will grant that the existence of Lazarus taxa, which is what these things are, right? They're groups that are gone from the fossil record and rediscovered later, either in the fossil record or in the modern day. It means that it's possible for other Lazarus taxa to exist. But you can't say that something is a Lazarus taxon until you find the late surviving examples. So, for instance, Dicynodonts. Someone thought they had found a Dicynodont skull in early Cretaceous rock, not that long ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, which would make Dicynodonts a Lazarus taxon, because after basically the middle of the Triassic, they have no fossil record, despite starting out the Triassic as 95% of the land biomass of vertebrates. It turns out that wasn't true, but okay, if it's true, then there's a weird shadow lineage of Dicynodonts, great. But you have to find the example, and carvings of things that don't look like dinosaurs are not evidence of late surviving dinosaurs. But we should try to push on.
Yeah.
And so now the evolutionist is presented with a problem. If coelacanths died out 75 million years ago, what's a live one doing in 1938? And they found a lot more of them. Some are even in aquariums today.
Here's an interesting thing. Years ago, when I was in undergraduate school in Minnesota, I was taking a course in botany.
Oh, he's a cell biologist. Therefore, he's an expert in things like comparative anatomy, paleontology, and dinosaurs. There you go.
And
Cell.
fish.
Yeah, well, fish have cells, Chesh. So there you go.
So he's an expert on anything that has cells. Got
Yes. Yep. Algae, yeasts, mushrooms, fish, dinosaurs. He knows it all. Basically,
I wonder if he knows how to brew a good beer.
I mean, he must because beer has cells.
Yeah.
So, what is it? Saccharomyces cerevisiae. That's brewer's yeast, guys. We'll get some. Make some beer. Send me it because I don't have any beer. I don't have any booze. I guess I have bitters, but I'm not going to drink a tall glass of bitters because I would probably die.
And our professor took us all outside the botany building to pay obeisance to a ginkgo tree.
Ginkgos are cool.
And we all stood around in just deep reverence looking at this ginkgo tree because we were told that this ginkgo tree, we can see it in the fossil record back to the time of the dinosaurs and beyond.
Wait, that particular ginkgo tree was in the fossil record and also in your botany lab? That's pretty amazing. Or do you mean there was
been alive that long.
right? It's been alive so long and shed so many leaves that its leaves, its own particular leaves, are in the fossil record. Or maybe you mean that a modern species that is related to ginkgo species from the fossil record is still around. Because that's another thing with all these living fossils is they're never the same species. Never.
Helios in the chat said, you know what a lot of fish have instead of bones? Cartilage. You want to know what doesn't fossilize? Cartilage.
That's true. That's chondrichthyes is the cartilaginous fish, and it's like rays, skates, sharks, things like dogfish, which aren't technically sharks, but they look a lot like sharks. Lantern sharks, which again aren't really sharks, but they look a lot like sharks. And then there's osteichthyes, which is the ray-finned and the lobe-finned fish, which also include all of us. So welcome to being a fish, Chesh.
Oh, I already knew I was a fish.
Okay, but that's good.
Well,
have you read Neil Shubin's Finding Your Inner Fish? It's extremely good. I recommend that to everyone. Go find Neil Shubin's book, Finding Your Inner Fish, or Your Inner Fish, or something like that. If you just Google search inner fish and Neil Shubin, who's not paying me for this, by the way. Wish he were. I would totally accept an endorsement deal from Neil Shubin for his book. Anyway, yeah.
I think we should get a endorsement from a fish pet store.
Oh, that could work. Yeah. Hey, any of you guys own a fish store? Let me know. I'll totally shill for you.
But the only problem with that is don't you think there would be something kind of fishy about it?
Yes, but I'm okay with that.
And here it is, growing, alive and well, just outside of our botany building. And isn't that amazing? And boy, we were impressed. But now that I look back on that, why didn't our prof just show us the far more abundant oak trees and elm trees? Because they're in the fossil record too. We have acorns, we have walnuts.
It's because they never went through some dramatic reduction in diversity like the ginkgo did. The ginkgos used to be an extremely diverse and extremely common group of trees at the end Cretaceous, and then they went to basically not existing at all, except for 2 species up until modern times.
The front of that squirrel looks like a butt.
Fair enough. I don't even have a response. Okay.
But
I'm tired today.
Well, spike that hot chocolate with some coffee. Have some mocha.
Some Kahlua.
Well, okay, that might make you more tired, but it's still a good idea.
All right, let's carry on.
And these are dating back 40, 50 million years. No, I don't accept these dates. I believe the Earth is 6,000 years old.
Because you're an idiot.
But if you're going to accept these dates, we have a tank here in the Creation Museum that is full of native Kentucky aquatic creatures. Sunfish, which have been found, the good old sunny you fish for, if you like to fish. They were around back, according to the fossil record, 40, 50 million years ago.
So is this guy making our point for us right now?
I guess. I don't even know what his argument is. Everything that you see now belongs to a taxon that was around 400 million years ago. There's a question as to how specific.
They're making the point that I made before this was that evolution has some questions it needs to answer, because the coelacanth was thought to be extinct because it was gone from the fossil record and then we found them alive. But this guy here is now saying that, well, look at all of these things that were also still alive that we have fossils of. So I don't get it.
I don't. It's a very confusing.
You see, this is why that you don't get a cell biologist, to talk about paleontology.
He's not talking about paleontology either, though. He's telling a story about a class he was in.
Well, he's moved on a little bit from that, Chesh. Let's be fair to him. He's moved on from that a little bit.
I don't know.
Okay. But also, remember, the fish that that we're seeing here, they have cells. So he's an expert on those fish. Right. Maybe he's not an expert on, like, slime molds, because they're, like, a weird sort of, like, it's all one big cell, but, like, it's got, like, 1,000,000 billion nuclei and whatnot. Maybe that's where his expertise breaks down to slime molds. He's clearly an expert on fish.
Go back at least as far as the dinosaurs. We have the short-nosed gar in the tank. Turtles, 120 million years.
Wait, 120 million years? That's it? I think stem turtles go back farther, but I guess it's hard to say exactly what counts as a turtle nowadays. Which is, again, one of those things like, it's funny that you wouldn't expect that if evolution isn't true, that we find all of these things that are like, is this quite a turtle? I don't know. It's almost a turtle. But, we'll ignore that.
Bats, 60 million years, 50 million years?
No, bats go back into the Cretaceous. Come on, dude. Now, we don't know that from fossils. We have genetic evidence for it, that their divergence time from other Racitharians.
Come on, bats were in the Bible. They're birds.
Well, yeah, the Bible just uses the same word for both bats and birds. But no, the current best estimation is that bats diverge from other scrotiferans in the I think there's no mid, the late Cretaceous, which is the majority of the Cretaceous, because the division of the Cretaceous is stupid. The first 1/3 of it is the early Cretaceous, and then like the last 2/3 of it are the late Cretaceous, and it's too late to fix that now because too many books have already been written about it. It's like, dude, why does everything else get a middle? The Cretaceous doesn't, but like the last 2/3 of it are late, and it's because of how they were counting up the strata. It's annoying, but whatever. But yeah, bats almost certainly diverged in the late Cretaceous.
And they look
science
just like
doesn't
the
always
bats
fix
do
mistakes.
today.
Amber is what I call a time capsule. It is some amber is supposed to be up to 50 million years old, and
no, much older than 50 million years. We've got Jurassic amber, man. Like, come on! Didn't you see Jurassic Park? Not kidding. It's not actually evidence, but yeah, amber goes back way more than 50 million years.
Quite a bit
To
of
be
amber
fair, Jurassic Park got more credible people to work on their movie.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, their scientific team was way better than this one.
Yeah, like Jack Horner, even though that I do disagree with Jack Horner on some things, like one of them being that he thinks that Triceratops didn't use its horns to defend itself. It's like, are you kidding me? That's like saying that you're not going to defend yourself with a knife like when someone's going to try to kill you.
Yeah, I mean,
For your fingernails, yeah.
I think that, yeah, Triceratops probably defended itself with its horns. Now,
I mean, I had to.
I mean, my guess, though, it was hopefully going to work on things like intimidation as its main form of defense, which, you know, a herd of Triceratops is pretty intimidating. So my guess is it was probably a last resort to actually gore things with the horn. But yeah. I have trouble believing that no T-Rex ever got the business end of a Triceratops brow horn.
Yeah, and I also disagree with him about some other things. But at least that they got somebody like who actually has experience in the field of paleontology, and and they didn't go out and like grab like a dentist or like some video game programmer like to tell them about how dinosaurs acted.
A cell biologist.
Yes, a cell biologist. Well, amber doesn't even have cells, does it?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, it's tree sap, which I think is
I'm not a cell biologist.
Oh, Chesh, get on that. Apply to some degree programs. Get your PhD in cell biology, or you could get your doctor's degree in education, like Kent Hovind did.
Can I just call myself a doctorate of art and just be like, no, I just do art.
No, you have to give me $10, and then I'll make up a fancy certificate and email it to you, and then you can print it out, and then you can call yourself that.
Okay, perfect.
I'll have created my own university by then.
Sounds good.
All right.
What are called inclusions in it. Now, inclusions can be insects, they could be water, they could be oxygen or air bubbles, if you will. And the reason
I'm going to go with air bubbles because somehow I don't think they're just bubbles of actual diatomic oxygen in a pure state hanging out in amber, because how could there possibly be?
Yeah, that would be bizarre.
Call amber a time capsule is, lo and behold, when we find, for example, ants and termites. We've even found the pine bark beetle that is decimating the forests in the Rocky Mountain West.
And we found Sphecomirmo, which is a transitional form between more basal vespid-like hymenopterans and ants, which was predicted by evolution to be found in about the same strata that the actual fossils in amber were found in. Once again, confirming a novel prediction of evolution, something that creationism has never had happen.
So is this guy making our point for us too?
You know, I think so. These guys are really bad at this. Although that's a nice landscape, I like that.
These animals, or these insects, if you will, are exactly the same as what we have today.
The Jurassic shrimp was supposed to become extinct during the Jurassic time, and yet they're alive and well and just as delicious today as back
Jurassic
in the
shrimp
evolutionary past.
First, I've never heard of a Jurassic shrimp, but second, what does it mean that they were supposed to go extinct? Does this guy think that evolution says that, like, oh, this group of animals has existed for, let me check my notes, 70 million years. Nope, it's done. Gotta cut it off. Like, that's not a thing. Does he mean into Lazarus taxon? Because it would be great if you used the actual term that scientists use, but why would you do that? Is there any part... So Chucky McNubbin asks, is there any part in any of the books of the Bible that could be misinterpreted so much so that the reader thinks God made great apes or Homo sapiens genetically related? I mean, I don't think the Bible talks about apes. I don't remember the Bible talking about apes at all. I don't think you could get any information about apes from the Bible. I mean, none of the books in the Bible were written anywhere that had extant apes at the time. I just don't think they're in there. I mean, presumably they would have been on the Ark, but if that story were actually true, but I don't think that the Bible mentions apes at all. If it does, then I will be surprised, because I don't remember that.
Well, I'm trying to think, are there any ape species in that... Were there any ape species in that part of the world at that time?
I mean, humans, but other than that...
Well, yeah, so, like, why would it describe something that people who wrote it would have never seen?
Yeah, I don't think it would. I mean, presumably the people in the stories would have if those stories were literally true. But they're...
Theoretically,
they're not, so it doesn't describe them. Because the thing is, like, it talks about, like, all the animals from all over the globe came to the Ark, but the only ones that were ever...
Hold on, calm down.
Oh, okay, that's true.
There's reasonable arguments that the Bible says the Earth is flat.
Oh, and we had lost, yep. But he's calling me on a separate call. I don't know how to fix that.
No, panic.
No, Eric, how do I fix this horrible noise? Okay, I'm gonna call you, Eric. There you go, now he's call. Nope, he went away. Eric is unavailable. Eric, stop doing this to me. Yeah, I can't... Eric, I cannot answer your current call because it will not add you to this call. It will disconnect me from Chesh. I'm saying this in hopes that maybe he's watching the stream with the sound on.
Yeah, I have no idea what happened there.
No, that's alright, man. I mean...
Probably just Skype.
Skype is trash sometimes. But, like, literally the only reason I use it is because it reliably lets me share sound, which probably isn't happening anymore, so I'm going to reshare with sound.
But yeah, I do not know if you two heard what I last said.
It depends on what you last said.
All right, well, what I said, if you really want to get technical about the Bible mentioning apes, oh, well, you know, people are apes, and so then in that case.
Oh yeah, we mentioned that.
You could argue that, but I mean, apes like orangutans, gorillas, and whatnot. Yeah, no.
Yeah, they're basically humans are the only primates that have existed in like the Middle East and the Levant and like the Mediterranean in historical times. There were apes in all of those areas previously that weren't humans or even on the human line, but they basically the same climate shift that caused humans to diverge from chimpanzees is the same one that basically wiped out pretty much all of the old world apes outside of Africa and like Southeast Asia. So
okay. And so these living fossils, I think, are clear testimony to the youth of this Earth.
Terrified.
We got to the part where we skipped past.
Oh.
According to conventional wisdom, the dinosaurs lived from about 250.
Oh, Chesh, in case you're wondering, they have this weird framing device about a woman reading like a creationist book to kids in a library for some reason, and it's just completely pointless. Like, I don't know why it's there.
So, hold on. So this whole thing is framed as if that children are supposed to be listening to these doctors talk?
Well, so it doesn't really make any sense, right? So every once in a while we hear this snippets of this story, and then it seems like this is supposed to be explaining what's said in the story, except it doesn't line up well with what's actually happening in the story in the first place. And no, it's horrible. It's why we skip it. Because it's just this woman reading to kids this really, really bad kid story that I think was probably written.
Can we actually do the opposite next time and take out all the bits that are just the story and just listen to the story?
I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'll work on an edit for that, and I'll send that along to you. You can.
Yay!
Maybe we can do that on your channel. We can do let's listen to this creationist dinosaur story for kids. That could be fun.
That would be fun.
All right.
Million years ago to about 65 million years ago. The reason why they say that is after the so-called Cretaceous layers, you don't find any more dinosaur fossils above there. And so they believe the dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago. And they believe
exactly
that man...
what the evidence says.
Right. Yeah, they only believe that because it's what all available evidence points to. I know, that's not the greatest reason to believe something, right? Because of the evidence. Pfft. Why would you listen to that? But...
Yeah, not all this consistent data from across the planet. Just this book that I found in the Middle East,
which doesn't even talk about the animals I'm talking about.
Completely unrelated, yeah.
Right.
Only evolved.
Not like pine trees
in the last
and
2 million
elephants.
I have that shirt, you know.
I do. You know.
Oh, you've seen that shirt, haven't you?
Yeah.
Have you seen me in that shirt? Yeah, the pine trees don't produce elephants shirt from the non-sec back when the non-sec was not in its current hiatus of awfulness.
Current situation.
Yeah.
We only find human fossils at the very top of the layers. And so man and dinosaurs, in their view, could never have lived together because they would be separated by...
That's not a dinosaur on the right. I can say
It's not a dinosaur on the right.
It's not. Look at it. Those are hind legs, right? But one, the digit proportions are wrong. The hip structure is completely wrong. I mean, look, one of the diagnostic characteristics for a dinosaur, it might be a lizard. I actually think it's a I always say this word wrong, so I'm actually going to Google it because
matter of fact, I might know what creature that is on the right.
I think it's a Cheshireviq.
Yeah. I thought so.
And I say that because of the flattened shape of the ribs, the rather robust lower legs, those are all sort of Cheshireviq sort of things, but it's hard to tell because really to get a good Cheshireviq identification, you want to be able to look at the skull, but it also has the same structure on the digits where there's typically 4 for the hind limbs for Cheshireviqs. So... it's hard to tell from this bad picture, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say Cheshireviq, which is not a dinosaur. It's not even a lizard. And also, they did survive the end Cretaceous extinction. They lived into the Cenozoic about 30 million years or so. So, there you go.
Over 60 million years.
An evolutionist would look at the fossil record, and they would based on their idea that the Earth is ancient and that the present is the key to the past, and they would look at natural processes which act very slowly, they would say, therefore, the fossil record must have accumulated very slowly. And because it's such a slow process, it's actually you can look at it and look at different eras of time. And so in
that was a dinosaur.
These fossils are buried. That means that these fossils are alive at one point in time. And then if there's a layer that appears above that, well, that must be a later period of time. There's a different set of fossils being buried there. That's a snapshot of a different period of time. And then they build this very elaborate.
I have yet
describing half of the process and trying to frame it like it's not a good way to find out information.
Right. And the thing the thing that really gets me is it's like, look, the fossil record as a record of faunal succession over periods of time isn't just based on like, oh, we find animals in different areas. We find things like soil horizons. We find things like different plants. We find fossils of plants growing in place at successive periods throughout the vertical sections of the column. Are you telling me that several forests in a row managed to grow, send down roots into lower layers, then die and fossilize in the course of a yearish long flood?
Yada yada yada, the entire process of phynology and putting the whole thing together.
Yeah, it's the only way to think that this is a reasonable way to interpret the evidence of geology is to simply not know anything about geology or biology.
This guy's a marine biologist.
Really?
That's what it said on underneath his thing.
Oh, that's just makes me really sad. Because that means this guy knows better and he's just lying. He's lying to you.
But unfortunately, when it comes to YECs, that's unfortunately pretty common. That was one of the reasons why I left YEC. As soon as I saw a series of videos called Science versus the Ark Encounter, that was when I was first exposed, like just how truly dishonest Ken Ham really is. And then after that, I unliked his Facebook page. I unsubscribed to the YouTube channel and everything. And I mean, if you two have not seen those series of videos, and everybody else watching, I strongly recommend that you go check out that series of videos. And what really irritates me, this guy will put, the words like alleged or supposedly, just so that he could try to, poke holes in evolution. But doing that isn't actually gonna poke holes.
Oh yeah. Well, that's one of the things that always. Whoa! Careful.
Ah, we died. Oh no.
Rip Eric. We'll have a memorial service for you later, buddy.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, one of the things that bugs me is you get a lot of these. It doesn't happen a lot nowadays, I'm seeing, but it was pretty big like 20 years ago, where creationists would come out and say, "Oh, look at all these words like allegedly and supposedly and possibly."
It's just some lines on a paper.
Right. Well, it's like those are the words that you use in science because you don't want to overstate your claims, because people are out to prove you wrong at every single possible turn. Everyone in science wants to prove everyone else wrong. And so you hedge your bets a little bit. You don't make... Right. Because the thing is, if you say, I know for a fact, and then you say something wrong, you're never getting that reputation back. It's just gone.
Or if you say something, or even if you say that and it's like 200 years later, your name will get dragged through the mud.
Adam Morgan for $2 talking about Eric Dubé. Well, I mean, he would be an example of this, but no, I wasn't talking about Eric Dubé in particular. Which, by the way, guys, that now means that we're only $98 away from seeing me in a tutu.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the challenge. I started it drunkenly yesterday. If a stream gets $100, I'm gonna put a tutu on.
Heck yeah.
So there you go. 98. Chances are it's gonna be a very long time before that happens, though, because yeah, let's face it, I'm not that big a channel.
Elaborate tree structure of all of life, and they build this very elaborate.
He's gonna get ruined. He's gonna get ruined with that tutu gig. Because he's gonna come on a non sequitur.
Oh man, which reminds me, you have to get me if you do want the Dapper Dinosaur comes in and just swallows the guest video, you gotta get me exactly which resolution and how you want it like masked and stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because I'll have to talk to Bool about that.
Yeah, talk to Bool, because Like I can put it on a chroma key background and pretty much any resolution.
Get yourself a pool.
Yeah, but I need to actually have the numbers and the information on that. Like, does he want a green screen, blue screen? Actually, blue screen wouldn't work because my tie is blue. So green screen probably is, but...
Jurassic layer, and they find some dinosaurs there, and they say because we find dinosaurs here, this particular layer is at least 70, 75 million years old. And so it is a tautology where they date...
It's not a tautology. He's about to say they date the fossils by the rocks and the rocks by the fossils. Okay, the relative sequence of the rocks, their relative age, which rock layer is older than which, is established by superposition. Because when you have sediments laying down sediment, they can't go under previous existing sediments without already being rocks and then getting turned around by some geological process, which does happen. But if they're currently being deposited, they have to be deposited on the top. Okay, but that's the relative age. Then, if you find a rock outcropping and you need to know quickly what age it was, if it's fossil-bearing strata, you can correlate that using index fossils to the other ages that were already established relatively with superposition. Now, the absolute dating comes in by bracketing the ages of these sediments with igneous intrusions, which can be radiometrically dated. So that's how we get absolute ages for these. At no point do you just say, oh, well, I just decided that this particular species of brachiopod is an index fossil for this period of time. Therefore, anytime you find it, it's this many years old with a number that I pulled out of my ass. It's not how any of this works. So let's hear him say it.
The fossils by the rock layers, and they date the rock layers by the fossils that they find in them. And so it is
by the
sorry, or circular.
Cough.
I did 1 year of geology in my university.
You did a whole year of geology at university? Oh my goodness. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
He's a physical chemist.
Yeah, but he did a year of geology, Chesh. And in that time, he apparently didn't learn much about it, but we're going to hear what he did learn.
Maybe this guy will be better at making us a beer.
Wait, then the cell biologist? I hope not. I'll be honest, if you're a cell biologist and you can't make me a decent beer, then what are you doing with your life?
Why did you even become a biologist?
Right.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the head of department said the fossil record does not support Darwinian evolution. He said this plainly. He made it clear he was not a creationist, but he did say the fossil record seems to support.
Citation needed, dude.
Exactly.
My one professor one time said this thing. Like, okay, that's great. You get a citation? You get his reasoning? You get anything besides an anecdote? Because I could say anything about any of my professors. Chesh, did I tell you that one time when I was getting my history degree, one of my professors said that the ancient Romans played baseball, but then everyone forgot how to play it until later North Americans reinvented it completely by, accident? That guy told me that. And it was a professor of history, so you should believe it.
Did you guys know that when I was in college, I did 1 semester of acting, and therefore I am a fantastic actress?
No, that's true, though. See, I believe that one.
Therefore, I know how to write plays, and I actually
there you go.
Shakespeare. It's beautiful.
Nice. But did you rewrite it in the original Klingon?
Yes.
Okay, good. So my copy of Hamlet in Klingon was written by you?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
I had to use a pseudonym.
Well, yeah, I think it was like Chris or something.
Nah, nobody was ever going to buy it if a girl wrote it.
I think they did say that to... Didn't they say that to J.K. Rowling or something?
They said that for a good number of writers throughout history. Yeah, that's actually that's a half truth.
I don't know. I would have to look at like a lot of statistics to see if it's really a thing. But I know a lot
It's not as bad as it used to be.
Okay, because I was gonna say I know a lot of pretty popular authors who use feminine names on the covers of their books, and like no one is under any impression that they're not a woman.
At this point, nobody really cares. Like, it's 2020. Nobody gives a shit anymore.
Oh, that's true. In current years,
this is
people
more like in the 70s and.
Okay, I could see that in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Divine creation. This I heard from the professor of geology and professor.
Oh, also, you know what the K stands for in J.K. Rowling?
What?
No.
Nothing. She made it up. She doesn't have a middle name.
Yeah.
She just put it in there so that she could sound more like an author. Because, you've got, like, G.R.R. Martin and J.R. Tolkien, and, you get people who put their 2 initials in the last name. She didn't have a last name. She was just like, K. Let's just put a K in there.
She didn't have a last name?
No,
She
that's...
didn't have middle name.
Middle names. Did I say last name? I meant middle name.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I think she has a last name. I think Rowling is her real last name. But,
So in New
It is
Zealand
now.
was the highest
Yeah.
of university teachers, not just any old lecturer.
Well, fossils are formed only under special circumstances. I'm a marine biologist. I'm a scuba diver.
So you're not a taphonomist.
Which means that you don't dig for fossils under the water like that.
I mean,
you take a
you
snorkel
can...
and go down there with a shovel.
Actually, underwater fossil thing is a thing. Like, there are people that go and scuba dive and get fossils.
Thing, but that's not what this guy does.
Probably not. Plus, he's about to tell us about fossil formation, and he's not a taphonomist, which is... Taphonomy is the study of how fossils form. Wow. Get a taphonomist on!
Oh, I lost count after about 500 scuba dives. And it's funny because most people think marine biologists study whales and dolphins, but really most marine biologists study worms and bacteria and mud.
That's true.
And so in my life, I've studied a lot of mud. I've dug mud in lakes, rivers, and streams all over the southeast. I'll look at the sediments all up and down the Florida
So
Keys.
he does go with a
Bahamas.
snorkel and a shovel.
Yeah, apparently.
Damn.
Well, he said he went with a scuba tank, so let's go with scuba tank and a shovel. But I mean, that really is. I mean, okay, so you're a marine biologist. Most of the biomass in the water is, in fact, in the form of, like, bacterial muck. So what else are you gonna do? You can bring a shovel and go get some muck.
Yeah.
In Belize, one trip to the South Pacific, which was very nice, and all that digging and all that sand and all.
Like he was just giving us his travel log now.
Fish skeleton. I've never found an incipient fossil. I've never found something that was being fossilized.
While you were not
Were
looking
you
for them,
looking for
right?
something like that, though?
No, he wasn't, because that's not what marine biologists do. It's just like, and the thing is, like, it's not like subfossils aren't a thing. So a subfossil.
I've dug in a lot of sandboxes and I've never found a fossil.
So subfossils are basically things that are in the process of fossilization. So they're partially permineralized and things like that. And actually, they're fairly common in stuff that's like only a couple million to like a few 100,000 years old. So we do, in fact, find fossils in the process of forming. I'm sorry that you didn't, while not looking for it, find a subfossil of a fish.
Yeah, but you caught what he said, right? He implied that you would expect to be finding these fossils, but he didn't. He said he was digging mud.
Right. Mud that was high.
Find fossils.
Right, and not just mud, but mud that has a high biomass in it, which is exactly the wrong place to find a fossil. You want a low amount of life in the fossil. So, or for the fossil to form. Like if you look at like where they found that the Archaeopteryx in Berlin, or well Solnhofen, but they sent it to Berlin. Whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, that was an anoxic lagoon. The only thing down there were anaerobic bacteria. The sort of place that's not very interesting for a marine biologist. But the sort of place that does preserve things, because anoxic bacteria, while they do break things down, they're super slow about it because they only use anaerobic respiration, which is a much slower metabolic process than aerobic respiration. So, yeah, while looking in exactly the wrong place to find fossils, you didn't find subfossils. Shocker.
And now he's going to tell us how fossilization works.
find
Because he was looking in the wrong place. But he totally wasn't looking for fossils.
Right. Oh, they're eaten by everything. Yeah, it's one of the reasons fossilization isn't common.
And usually they're eaten on the way down. And so their bones tend to be scattered all over the place, and their flesh is destroyed. And even if they land in the mud, the bones dissolve over time in the water made of calcium carbonate, is soluble in seawater. It really takes special circumstances to...
So, did he literally just explain the exact reason why he shouldn't have expected to see anything where he was looking?
Mm-hmm.
But was still bothered by the fact that he didn't find anything while he was looking.
Yep.
What is with these people? Always making the point for us.
I don't know, Eric, what were you going to say?
But like I've been saying throughout this whole thing.
Doggo!
Oh, hello, Simba. And so this guy's shooting himself in the foot like all these other people. It's because he's saying, oh, well, fossilization happens under rare circumstances. And then he goes on about, well, we don't find some fossils. But it's like, under the right circumstances, circumstances, if it's preserved just the right way, then yes, it can. And man, it's sad by the fact that this guy, like we said, this guy should know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, look, here's the thing. If you have enough confirmation bias, this sounds kind of convincing, and that's all they're banking on. None of this stuff is ever produced to convince non-creationists to become creationists, because you basically just I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen.
A commentary about you, Simba.
But it's very uncommon.
No.
Basically, to be a creationist, you have to have been raised that way. I don't know of... I have trouble thinking of a single person I know who has become a creationist after being at least a reasonably well-informed non-creationist.
Make a fossil. And most of those circumstances are met by Noah's flood, where you have a very rapid...
Oh, you're right. I didn't put a link in for Chesh. Chesh, like, DM or Facebook message me a link so I can add it to the description, because I didn't know you were coming on, so I put a link in for Eric, but not you.
Oh, like of my YouTube page?
Yeah,
lots
yeah.
of fossils being buried very quickly, being sealed off away from oxygen, and then being impregnated by the minerals that dissolved in the water that can recrystallize inside those bones, prevent them from dissolving away, and you get a fossil.
I believe those dinosaurs were buried in sediment at the time of Noah's flood, which would have been about 4,000 years ago. So either at the time of the flood or at some point after the flood during the runoff, because all the dinosaurs that we know of, with rare exception, are buried in water-deposited sediment. As Ken Ham says, if there really was a worldwide flood, you'd expect to see billions of things buried in rock layers deposited by water all over the earth, and what you really see are billions of dead
he's
things buried in rock
referencing
layers
Ken
deposited.
Ham and he didn't say water right.
No, that's Kent Hovind who says water distinctly.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, you mixed up Ken Ham and Kent Hovind.
Anyway, anytime you say water, you should still say it properly.
Well, obviously, but...
Or something like that.
Yep. Oh, I just got a, by the way, a Twitter DM, not from Chesh, because why would Chesh send me the Twitter DM after I ask her to, but from Erica from
Hey, come on now, I sent it to you in Skype.
Oh, did you? I'm not checking the Skype chat. What is this? I don't even know how to... Where's the Skype?
I disappeared.
I know, it's because I clicked on my Skype window. Ah, Chet, you're making this difficult for me. Just send it in, like, Twitter. But I did get a Twitter DM from Erica from Gutsick Gibbon, who you should also check out, and who I am probably going to have on for an interview about her leaving Young Earth Creationism, because she was Young Earth Creationist as a kid, and now she is studying for her master's in primatology.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and she just had a couple of very, very good, in this is my opinion, very good debates on Modern Day Debate. One with Standing for Truth, and one with Ken Hovind. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of her, so I actually tried to reach out to her a while ago, you know, just to see if maybe if she would want to have the after show on my channel, but she never said anything. So I'm assuming that she must have had it on some other channel. But yeah,
I don't know. I know she was on Vandalia's channel. She went on there for a quick after show. But I'm gonna keep going and hopefully, Chesh, don't send it in Skype because I don't know how to check this without making everyone disappear because I'm an idiot at these things.
I'll send it to you on Twitter.
Okay.
And that is certainly true of the dinosaurs. And when you read about them, they always are described as having wandered too close to an inland sea or lake, and maybe got a little tipsy and fell in. And before their flesh could rot, before scavengers could eat
is that always what happens? Because I'm pretty sure that there are like Aeolian and fluvial and also even flood sediments where dinosaur bones are found. It's not.
You know what's gonna be really funny? He's gonna check his Twitter DM and he's gonna laugh at the name of my channel.
Did you change your channel name?
No, but I have a proper URL, which means the channel name is just CheshireViq.
Nice. I need to get a proper URL, but when I was about to go do that, I got lazy in trying to figure out how, and then I just never changed that fact that I was lazy. I know. I'm the worst. All right, here is the channel. Oh yeah, it is just CheshireViq. Yeah, you could have just told me that, I guess. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That is getting added to the description at off the microphone. Right now, there it is, saved.
Those little triceratops are super cute, but do you really think their horns were that long right out the gate?
Sorry. The length actually isn't terribly wrong, but the shape is quite off. Juvenile Triceratops had downward sloped horns. So, and they probably weren't quite that long, but I'm also going to object to the epoccipital horns on the frill of this adult Triceratops because, as far as we can tell, epoccipital horns went away during basically Triceratops' version of puberty. So,
Aww.
yeah.
Aww.
Yeah, there's some problems with your Triceratops reconstructions, buddies. Or buddy, I don't know. But then again, I don't know when these were made, so maybe I can't nitpick that much.
You mean because they don't source anything?
Well, no, because I mean, like, those could have been, like, from an actual...
He just showed a picture where he doesn't have the horns!
Right, yeah, this is an adult or sub-adult Triceratops, and it doesn't have the epoccipital horns. It just has a smooth frill, because they go away. It's one of the most common things you see in Triceratops reconstructions that's wrong. It's that and claws. They get the wrong number of claws all the time. Or just the wrong number of feet, or the wrong shape of feet. Dinosaur feet are always done badly, except for theropods. Theropods are the only ones who ever get good feet. But that's just because they have big old bird feet.
A very cementatious rock. This isn't going on today. I have rabbits and squirrels in my backyard. I don't know what happens to them when they die. I've never seen any little rabbit funerals or anything like that. And I'll tell you, there's...
What is he...
That's actually completely not true. Rabbits absolutely respond when a rabbit around them dies. If you've ever heard like a really high-pitched scream in the night...
Oh yeah, that's a rabbit.
It's a mom rabbit who's seen their baby die.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, I don't get the point. Like, okay, you haven't seen rabbits standing around in, like, black dresses and suits and ties, lowering a rabbit into the ground in your backyard. Okay.
Earth is young.
Therefore, dinosaurs? I mean, like, what? It's...
Therefore, the Earth is young.
Right, exactly. It's just like, what is the point of your story, dude?
Certainly not making fossils.
You can't get a fossil if a dinosaur
Making
died.
Wait. So, hold on. So what he just said was that we certainly don't see rabbits sitting around having a funeral and making fossils. Is that what he thinks the dinosaurs did? Like the reason we have dinosaur fossils is because other dinosaurs held funerals?
I'm going to use the principle of charity and say that no, he was just being silly in the first case. And what he's saying is that since his backyard isn't conducive to the formation of fossils, therefore fossils can't form in most situations. Which doesn't follow, although the conclusion is true, most situations are not conducive to fossil formation, but it doesn't therefore follow that when when conditions conducive to fossil formation do occur, that they won't then form fossils. Like, yeah.
I can't. I'm not sure that that's better.
Yeah, it's an extremely hard to follow train of thought because it doesn't follow. The conclusion is ultimately worthless to his line of argument. Yeah, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense.
In the forest, it's going to rot away and get scavenged, and you can see that in the farms today. You don't see sheep and cattle fossilizing. You have to bury them quickly, and when you have something like a global flood, you're going to bury lots of creatures, and that's why we find lots of fossil dinosaur graveyards where they've been washed in the iguanodon.
But that wasn't a dinosaur either, was it?
Flood, you're going to bury lots of creatures, and that's why we find lots of fossils.
I can't tell what that is. It looks like the top of a diapsid skull, maybe? I can't. No, it doesn't even really look like that. I don't know. I can't tell. Can you tell?
I can't tell.
Okay. Well, that doesn't mean it's not a dinosaur, so maybe it is a dinosaur, and it doesn't. I'd be very surprised if that's a dinosaur, but okay. Darth Smaug. You gotta say it's Smaug, because that's how Tolkien wanted it to be pronounced. Smaug. Says
you mean
it's...
that picture is Benedict Cumberbatch?
No, that's Darth...
Benadryl Cabbage Patch?
Darth Smaug is in the chat, and he says that it's a I think he means it's a crocodilomorph, because crocomorph, as far as I know, isn't a taxon. I guess it could be a crocodilomorph. It's got a very short snout for a crocodilomorph, and if that's the spine, it doesn't look like a crocodilian spine. But I don't know. I'm done trying to identify this fossil.
Dinosaur graveyards where they've been washed in, like the Iguanodon graveyard, which makes sense.
Yeah, local floods are actually a better explanation, because a global flood would have effects globally that we just don't see, like a global flood deposit, which doesn't exist.
Heads up, I do have to get going. I have another stream that I have to go to, so thanks for letting me stop by, though. I'll have to stop distracting you so you can actually get through this freaking video.
Right, you're gonna leave us abandoned.
One more thing.
Abandoned.
Abandoned, just like JM Truth. Guys, they left him abandoned.
I have this really bad habit of calling JM Truth GM. I don't know why. It's not on purpose.
But yeah, but one thing before you go, you said they have a YouTube channel, right?
Chesh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Her channel is in the description. It's, I would say, is it primarily art, or are you transitioning into a lot more commentary? Because I noticed that you've been doing interviews and commentary a lot more.
I'm doing both.
Okay, so yeah, art, commentary, and interviews, and the commentary often also includes art, which is nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will certainly be sure to go to check out your channel then.
Oh, Vandalia, Chesh isn't new to my channel. She was on the channel months ago.
I've been here a good number of times.
Yeah, she lurks around. She's always welcome on my streams. She knows that. Anytime.
You're so sweet to me.
Aw, well, you've been sweet to me too, so.
Oh, thanks.
All right.
That's where the goblin came from.
Exactly.
That's Murphy.
Yeah, that's Murphy. That's a D&D character that you made.
I've also got the darkness closing in on me now too.
Yeah, is the sun setting up there? Yeah, I guess you were in the frozen north and you're like 2 hours ahead of me, so.
Yeah, it's nighttime here already.
Ugh, gross.
I had to turn some lights on.
All right, well, I'll talk to you later, and thank you for sending me that hot chocolate.
Thanks for letting me come in. It was a good time. And it was nice meeting you.
All right. Oh, and
Puck needs me now, too.
Bye. All right. Well, that's everybody. That was CheshireViq. Like I said, her link is down in the description. You might have to refresh the page, because I don't know if YouTube descriptions get, like, real-time updated when I update them. So, yeah, check her out. She is also... I believe the plan is, and I'm not spilling the beans here because this has already been announced, but when the Non Sequitur show gets back up and running, she will be Steve's regular co-host.
Awesome.
So, yeah, check her out. She has a lot of good stuff. Unfortunately, most of her content actually ends up being on other people's channels and other people's live streams and whatnot. But, yeah, Chesh is great, so check her out, give her a subscription, watch her videos, a lot of cool art stuff. Especially, and also, like I said, recently she's been branching out into interviews and commentary. So, and I think her last commentary video, which I think was actually her first, I thought it was excellent. The only complaint I had was that the sound levels were a bit low. But yeah, turn it up, and it's a great video. Okay, here we go. Flood stuff.
Happened with my channel too. I started off as a movie channel, but then recently I just decided to branch off.
Yeah. All right, flood.
You've got a huge catastrophe, a watery catastrophe. And of course, when you have a watery catastrophe, you don't need...
Also, I think that flood simulation was actually just using, like, a bunch of displacement maps that were all tied to different objects that they moved around. It's like the laziest and least effective way to do an ocean simulator. Look, guys... Most well-featured 3D programs have an ocean simulation that's already built in that can give you a decent ocean sim. Use it. And if you don't know how and you're trying to, send me a message and I will explain it to you.
Millions of years to explain where rock layers either.
Right behind me is what is called a polystrate fossil.
I think you're thinking of a vertical fossil, but let's keep going.
Meaning many, straight meaning strata. So here's a fossil that is...
Oh, it is upright, but it looks like it's only in one stratum, because the next stratum that I can see up here at that dark layer actually is where this tree is cut off. Because being a layer isn't the same thing as being a stratum.
Straight up and down, going through many layers of strata.
No, one layer of strata. You have visibly only one layer of strata with that fossil in it. So the thing is, if multiple layers are put down in succession in the same depositional environment, with the same geology, essentially, that is the same stratum. Deposition in a single stratum does not have to be continuous and steady throughout time. It can stop and start up again. For example, if you have a floodplain, then you will have seasonal or whatever, seasonal or annual floods, right? That come in and deposit additional sediment, and that will form into layers. But after those layers undergo lithification, they will be still in layers, but it will still be one stratum. That tree doesn't go through more than one stratum. The next stratum up is a dark layer of, I mean, I can't tell what it is, because even if this were high quality, it's hard to tell exactly what a rock is just from looking at it from afar. But yeah, it's obviously a different kind of rock than that below it.
And what is significant about that? Well, first off,
it is a bunch of layers unidentified Leviathan, but like I've just been explaining, layers and strata are not synonymous.
Conventional wisdom around here in the Hell Creek Formation is that it could take 1,000 years, a centimeter.
Is that the conventional? I've never heard that as a quoted depositional rate for the Hell Creek Formation. You've done work there, Eric. Have you ever heard anyone make that claim?
I never have.
Okay. I don't know why you would make that claim, since the Hell Creek Formation was known to be a flood-prone, swampy area. I'm right about that, right?
Yeah.
So I would think it would actually have a pretty high sedimentation rate as a result of that. At least in certain areas.
Right, yeah, and this is actually another one of those things that even AIG says to not use, but yeah, and what's interesting, that's at the Montana Creation Museum that I used to go to, and all the times that I was there, they actually never even had that. So maybe either they want to make room for something else, or they finally realized that, hey, this is not a good thing to use. You know, it has a case for us trying to argue the Earth is only 6,000 years old and humans and dinosaurs existed. So yeah.
Yeah. It's. Oh, and by the way, like I said, it looks like Wednesday the 15th is probably going to be my interview with Erica from Gutsick Gibbon. So stay tuned for that. She was, I think she was great on her debates, and I've seen a bunch of her videos. Check out, look for Gutsick Gibbon, one word, on YouTube, because I've watched, I think, 3 or 4 of her videos. She doesn't have a huge catalog of videos right now, but every one that I saw was entertaining and well presented, and they were also pretty funny. So check out her content. I think she is a good content creator, and I hope that she keeps it up, because I think she'll be a good addition to sort of the science YouTube field. And also, it's nice to have good primatology stuff, because I feel like that's an underserved area of biology on YouTube. I don't see a lot of primatology stuff specifically, so.
Yeah. And I mean, there was Bill Ludwell, who was very knowledgeable about human evolution, but
yeah,
unfortunately he passed away, and then I'm not saying that she is going to replace him.
No one could, but it'll help fill in some of that gap that I think is currently missing. In fact, actually, the reason I'm interviewing her and then later on you about leaving young Earth creationism is because I'm trying to fill in some of that gap that Bill has left too. Because I've decided I'm going to continue the series of leaving young Earth creationism interviews, because I feel like it's something that should be out there. But let's keep going with this.
To lay down all of the sedimentary deposits. Well, is that polystrate fossil behind me going to wait around for 100,000 years while slowly all of the sediment is put in around it to hold it straight up? No, it's going to decompose, it's going to fall over long before that happened. It had to have been done very, very quickly.
I mean, trees can stay up dead for decades. It doesn't have to be that quickly. And flood deposition and seasonal flooding can be rapid.
There are some fish fossils that I've seen with exquisite preservation. All the scales, all the fins are intact. The fish's mouth is closed. His gills are closed, which is an indication that he's buried in squish. In fact, the streamlines around the fish in the mud, it looks like he was struggling and trying to swim as he's being buried.
Well, what? Why does... First, gills being closed. Anything that's going to cause sediment to fall on top of a fish is going to tend to press the gills against the side of the animal. They're going to be, laterally compressed. Just because that's how things falling on a fish works. And yeah, some fish have their mouth closed in fossils, some don't. You showed some that didn't. I don't get how this is an argument. I don't get what it indicates to you about the fish.
We've got abundant evidence of rapid fossilization. There's some three-dimensional dinosaurs that are preserved where a dinosaur is crouching down, and yet he's covered in mud, and the only way to do that is if the mud is accumulated.
Citation needed. I have never seen any indication of any quote-unquote dinosaur mummy in some crouching position like it was in life. Have you?
I have not either.
Yeah. I mean, this sounds like something you made up, dude. Honestly.
Accumulating so quickly that he's literally suffocated in the mud. Because if he had died, he would have fallen over. Or at least would have laid down flat. But no, he's crouching.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
Oh, sorry. What I said is like, it's kind of like some of those YECs who were trying to argue that the Ashley beds supposedly supports a young Earth and humans and dinosaurs coexisting, when it obviously doesn't.
Yeah, it's...
if you have to lie in order to support your cause, I really think that you need to rethink your cause.
Well, unfortunately, that's... Professional creationists are extremely dishonest. I don't think that's true for most non-professional creationists, like the people who just go to church and consume this media, because I know too many of them, and I don't think that they're being dishonest about this belief. I just think that they're ignorant on the subject and gullible, basically.
The mud covers all the way up above his head. And mounts...
It's true. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't disprove it, unidentified thing, but just asserting it doesn't actually provide evidence of the claim. If you say that there's an unusual fossil and you don't provide any way to find that fossil, then I'm just going to say, no, there isn't. Because you can say literally anything exists anytime you want. You can say, oh, this thing exists. Well, okay. Does it? Does it, though?
I don't think so.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And the thing is that Eric and I, we travel in circles where that sort of thing would come up. So, it's like if you're like if you're like someone who's like a gearhead, you're really into cars and stuff like that, right? Someone comes up with some radical new car design, you're probably going to hear about it if it has, some unusual features that make it really great. Like, maybe it can go from 0 to 200 in half a second, and it gets like 800 miles to the gallon, and it, is super safe and whatever. Like, I'm just making, ridiculous things up. But like, if that happened, then you can bet the gearheads would probably find out about it. And if you told one of them that such a thing existed, they would be perfectly justified in saying, okay, what is it? Where is it? Give me some data about it. Where can I find it? And essentially, Eric and I are like the paleontology versions of gearheads. We read a lot about this. We keep up with the news, new findings. If this had happened, we'd probably know, and the fact that we've never heard of anything even remotely like it means that if it probably doesn't exist, and if it does, and you're gonna claim that it does, you're gonna have to provide me with evidence of it. You're gonna have to say at least give me a link to like a popular level science publication that talked about it. Because then at least I can then go do some digging and find the actual paper.
The Helens is certainly an excellent example because we saw things happen there that blew geologists' mind. May 1980, the eruption of Mount St. Helens, and the next, in that major eruption and subsequent ones, up to 600 feet of rock layers new material was deposited around Mount St Helens. And at one particular level, we find a 20-foot horizon that was produced on June 12, 1980. We know the day and the year because people were there to observe it. So it's testable. You know, we've got reliable eyewitness accounts.
It's not really testable so much as it is a matter of record, but that's a little nitpicky.
But within that 20-foot thick layer, we have multiplicity of small layers, alternating.
Yeah, because that's a single stratum. You're making my point for me, dude. Again, they're making my point for me. Those layers are in a single stratum of volcanic ash. So if you found a vertical fossil straddling multiple of those layers, it would still be a monostrate fossil, which is a stupid word that I just made up, but it's like every fossil. Although I will say that sometimes upright trees do have roots that extend into a lower stratum. That does actually happen.
You know, what I think that they should add as a subtitle of this, rather than creation or evolution, they actually should replace it with shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
I mean, they really...
Darth Smile, you looked up the crouching dinosaur, I think? He says that fossil, and I assume he means the crouching dinosaur, and it appears to be an art piece not based on any particular animal. Well, I would definitely believe that someone made a fake fossil, and I'm not saying fake like as a fraud, like just as an art piece, made an artwork of a fossil that doesn't exist of a crouching dinosaur. That's a perfectly fine thing to do. There's no problem with that. Just not evidence of anything in the real world, because it's just art. And I don't mean just art to denigrate art, because, you know, I'm an artist. I make some of my money selling art. You know, Chesh, who's, you know, one of my favorite people to have on, she's an artist. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with art. It just also isn't evidence of biology.
Yeah, it's really not at all. But yeah, it's like the bottom line is a drawing is a drawing. But yeah, let's...
Coarse and fine-grained layers. Now, a geologist normally looking at that with a millions of years belief system, we call it mental glasses, looking through the idea of millions of years, who would have thought that each of those little bands would have taken thousands of years to accumulate? You know?
No, he wouldn't, because no one thinks that a volcanic event laying down what's going to compress, by the way, into a few tens of feet, because that soft ash is in fact soft ash, it's going to compress, but that no one would think looking at that any volcanic depositional event lasted that long. And even if they did think that, they would test it radiometrically and find out that it didn't. Geologists don't have this number of centimeters per annum that they just assume is the rate of deposition of sediments or other rocks. Like, that would be identified as a igneous intrusion on top of whatever sedimentary record is there. That was a single event. Now, how long it lasted might be a little bit open. Like, did it happen in a day? Did it happen in a week? Did it happen in a year? All of those are hard to distinguish. But geologically speaking, that's all the same thing, basically. A year is essentially instantaneous, as far as geology goes. So, yeah, that would not be interpreted as millions or thousands of years of ash falling from a single volcano.
Alternating yearly sequences, and so the whole sequence, hundreds of them, would have taken hundreds of years. But we observed it to happen in just one day.
The rock layers are not a...
Oh, and Chucky McNubbin says that he specializes in silver and silver-plated wares, and a person tried to tell him that the Baghdad battery was used to electroplate metals 2 millennia ago. There's no evidence for that anywhere. I also am very skeptical of that claim. I think people have tested reproductions and it kind of works to electroplate things, but that doesn't mean that that's what it was being used for. The Baghdad battery is a weird thing, and it's very mysterious. And I don't think anyone has any good idea of exactly what it was being used for. Wouldn't volcanic ash incinerate anything it touched? No, because volcanic ash, being small particulates, has a very high coefficient for heat transfer as it's getting ejected into the air, and so it cools down to a little bit above ambient temperature, usually well before it hits the ground. So, yeah.
sequence of age but a sequence of burial, taking their age interpretation, they shouldn't be, the coelacanths have died out. Yet we know they're living today. People will ask why we know dinosaur and human.
The thing is, though, the coelacanths in question, the ones in the fossil record, did die out. The ones we have now are not those coelacanths. There is no species that's the same from 66 million years ago.
Together. I would ask, why are there no coelacanths and whales fossil together, even though they live in the sea together?
Because the coelacanths that live in the sea don't live in areas that tend to be conducive to either forming or finding fossils. But that's not true for all cetaceans. There, you asked the question and you got an answer.
It's because they just weren't buried together.
Now, how do you explain that by slow and gradual processes with little local floods over millions of years? Now, only a global flood can explain rock layers with marine fossils up on the continents that were catastrophically deposited and buried.
No, actually, first, most of those deposits weren't catastrophically buried, but there's this thing called uplift. Yep, there you go. Problem solved.
And what they don't realize is that floods and water, yes, and they can create fossils, but yet, you know, there are places like the La Brea tar pits, and like where that wasn't caused by floods or water, it was caused by tar. And you know, I really wonder how in the world do young Earth creationists argue about the La Brea tar pits, you know, being a part of the flood. I mean, that would be pretty good evidence against a worldwide flood, if you ask me. You know, to show that not all fossils are buried rapidly, and not all fossils are, you know, buried through water and floods. So
yeah, I can't add to that. No, that was good.
It swept right across the continents and between continents. I mean, the evidence is crying out for catastrophe. It screams Noah's flood. It therefore screams the young Earth.
You know,
no, literally nothing in the geological record can be explained by a global flood. Not a single thing. In fact, oh yeah, hey, yeah, let's pull this up. So I have it somewhere. So here we go.
Exactly what I found.
Noah's flood may have happened, but not over the whole Earth, from the National Science Center of Education. And basically, remind me, this is the basically there was a flood around the Black Sea, right? It wiped out a big portion of the Middle East at the time.
Yeah, and also even the Bible itself, you know, I'm personally convinced that it doesn't speak of a worldwide flood because A, the overwhelming evidence in science, and also B, taken with many concordance, if you look at the Hebrew word eretz, it actually can refer to a large parcel of land, a nation, and that also, and the actual Hebrew word for Israel is actually Eretz Israel, and I'm not sure if a lot of YECs realize this. Maybe some do it or some don't. But so if you were to go to a worldwide flood, like with only Noah and his family surviving, and that would mean the whole entire world is repopulated through incest.
Yep. Yeah, there would be extremely low levels of genetic diversity.
And do they not think that that's disgusting? And do they not think that makes, you know, the same God that I worship with them out to be a disgusting pig? I mean, you really should rethink your theology on that.
I mean, hey, I'm not here to comment on theology per se, but I see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, I love my mom and all, but I'm not gonna put my side of her.
All right, well, we are coming up on the 2-hour mark, so I think we are gonna pause it here.
And then we'll do a part.
Yeah, we're gonna do a part 3. We're 48 minutes into this. It's an hour and 24 minutes total, but I think a fair bit of that last bit is end credits. So I think one more will probably get us through the rest of this. So remember, subscribe to Eric and CheshireViq. They are both linked in the description. If you don't see them both, it's because you probably have to refresh. Let's see. stay tuned. My homeopathy video should be coming out in a few days. Hopefully I can get Erica on the 17th or 16th, 15th, I don't know, Wednesday, next Wednesday.
So, sorry to interrupt, but question about Erica. Do you know if she has a Facebook account or Instagram or what?
I connected with her on Twitter. That's all I know. She has Twitter and a YouTube. I don't know about any other social media platforms. But if you do want to follow her on Twitter, she is gutsick, one word, _Gibbon. So feel free to go give her a follow. And actually, yeah, check her out on YouTube too, gutsick, Gibbon, one word. But that is it for me for now. And yeah, memory water, it's coming. I'm going to talk about the supposed memory of water. Do you know about that, Eric? Watch my homeopathy video in a few days, and you'll know about the water memory. It's crazy.
Alrighty.
I'm probably going to expand a little bit on it based on what's on my script now. So, all right, thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and I will talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.